Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to BEDC's Business Sustainability and Continuity Funding webinar. During this 1 hour, this is a lunch and learn, so hopefully you have brought your lunch with you. And of course, because of COVID-19, we have transitioned all of our seminars, lunch and learns, and workshops to an online format. Through this 1 hour, we want to be able to explain to you what actually is the COVID-19 funding for businesses and how to actually apply successfully and get through the application process. My name is Eureka Smith. I'm the Executive Director of Bermuda Economic Development Corporation. And joining me today is Mr. Ray Jones, who is the Director of Finance, Data, and Administration at BEDC. So to start, I see that we have about 68 people registered. Right now we have 15 people on, so hopefully the rest of our colleagues will join us. The format of this webinar is that we will make the presentation. I'll start and then Ray will jump on. And then we'll leave some time at the end, hopefully around 15 minutes or so, to answer any of your questions. With this webinar, you do have the ability to type in questions. And even if we don't get to all those questions today, to answer all of them, we will answer them and send them back to you by email as follow-up after the webinar. I also want to draw your attention to the fact that there are handouts for this webinar. Some of the documents that we speak about with regard to the application process have been uploaded. And so we have attached them. Please download them. You won't be able to download them after the webinar ends, but we will have them available to you if you email us or after. We can provide you with a link to where they are stored on our website. Okay, so just to start, so I've given an introduction of the presenters, and we're going to go through just what BEDC does. We're going to go through the program, the funding document requirements, what the business profile is, a review of what the fees are associated with the application process, what we need with regard to submission information, and then also just walk you through financial statements to give you an overview of why they're needed and what they speak to and how we use them. And of course, as I said at the end, some Q&A. Right now, everyone's mics are muted, but if you do have a question at the end, please, there's a button to allow you to raise your hand. We'll open that up to allow you to ask your question, and we'll hear you ask a question outside of the typed questions that are actually on the webinar format. So as I said, I'm Eureka Smith, and joining with me today is Ray Jones. So BEDC, we've been in existence since 1980, and we provide basic advice and support and technical advice to local small and medium-sized businesses. We provide a variety of products from workshops through to reliefs with regard to taxes and duty. We manage vending licenses. We offer incubation programs and growth programs, accelerator programs. We also offer programs for young entrepreneurs, and we also provide direct financing ourselves, and we offer guarantees to bank financing. And I'm pretty excited because we're also working on a partnership with the credit union, which will allow us to provide guarantees to their products for their members. And our most recent product is this $24 million relief that comes as a result of COVID-19. We're grateful for the government for providing us with financing to be able to do that. And we've also extended what we can do in order to increase support to businesses. Actually, before I go into the details of the actual program, we've developed a quick poll. And so if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like for you to answer a poll that we put together on how is COVID-19 currently impacting your business? So I'll just give you a few seconds to be able to vote. There are 5 questions. So how is COVID-19 currently impacting your business? Give a few more minutes. So 30% of you have voted, and we'll keep that open for another 30 seconds or so. Okay, we'll close that first poll. But interestingly enough, what we had expected was that 50% of the respondents had indicated that their revenue had decreased significantly and their debt has arisen. But also 50% of you had indicated that it has provided an opportunity to reassess your business and to innovate it. And so that's really comforting to hear. So to address the debt, if we go back to sharing of the presentation, we have created this COVID-19 relief package in order to provide businesses with some support. So I think the first thing to kind of understand with this is that the package is 24 million, and it consists of, on one hand, BEDC direct loans, inclusive of grants. So it is a funding package that comes from BEDC based on the size of your business. And that funding package is comprised of two parts. One is a loan part, and another is a grant part, which actually reduces the loan significantly. It is available to all businesses, so small and medium-sized businesses. Those that then can apply, as well as those businesses that are located in our 3 economic empowerment zones. We have taken the position to decrease the interest rates that we were providing for our regular microloan products. And so we've decreased them by 1.5% to 3.5% for small and medium-sized businesses. And for those that are within our economic empowerment zones or vendors to 3%. We have extended and increased our repayment terms from our what was our current 24 months to 42 months. We've introduced interest-only payments. We've also introduced a deferral period for payments. And so the first 3 months of it, from when you get an approval, there is no expectation for a payment. And then the next 3 to 6 months is only interest-only. And from then on, there will be principal and interest. So most of these applications that have been approved, we won't see clients repaying back on the full amount until 2021, which gives some breathing room. And then if we have a complete application, and I have to stress this, a complete application, then we should be able to approve and distribute the funding within 10 business days. So that would be 2 weeks. There are 5 bands of businesses that we are providing funding for. Those bands are based on the annual revenue for those businesses and the number of employees, and whether or not they meet our definition of a small business or a medium-sized business as per our act. There are 4 small business bands that range from $1 in finance, and of course we're not going to give someone $1, but $1 in finance and up to $30,000 maximum in financing. And then for medium-sized businesses, it is $40,000. The caveat in this is that the grants are only available for small businesses. We felt that medium-sized businesses had enough assets to be able to meet a pure loan funding. And so we've only reserved the grant portion for what is defined as a small business. As indicated, grants will only be deployed as part of an overall funding package, which includes the loans. We will distribute these funds in 3 increments as agreed by BEDC and the applicant. And there are some conditions and criteria for this funding. And one of the most important is that there's there's a desire and an action to retain or rehire a certain percentage of employees post COVID-19. But obviously, every business is unique. And so in working hand in hand with your BEDC officer, we'll be able to evaluate whether or not that is feasible in the future. The second part of this 24 million is 12 million that we have allocated for guaranteeing loans with the financial institutions, and for the first time guaranteeing overdrafts. And so BEDC, we have partnerships with all 3 local banks. And as I said, we now have developed a partnership with the credit union that we're really excited about. And so in some cases, some businesses are not going to benefit from just financing directly from BEDC. They may need an overdraft, they may need higher amounts of financing that we cannot provide. And so in that case, then we are willing to come in as a guarantor to secure this loan or this overdraft. And as I said, now we've increased that up to 75% of the value of that loan. Our maximum guaranteed value is 300,000, which is great. And our maximum guaranteed value for an overdraft is 50,000. And in all of this, we are actively working hand in hand with you as a client to negotiate preferential interest rates with the financial institutions. On those loans and overdrafts, it's available to all businesses, small and medium. And as indicated for bank loans, the repayment has been within 5 years. And for overdrafts, the repayment would be up to 18 months. We have negotiated with our partners that they will actually process these applications without much BEDC involvement. We feel confident in the relationship. And in our part, all we're saying is that we're providing pre-approved guarantees so that they can execute approval as quickly as possible. So with regard to the fees, there are some fees associated with both sets of products. So the direct loans and relief grants from BEDC, we have actually reduced across the board all of our fees. So prior to COVID-19, for a loan directly from us, this would actually be increased by 100%. So we've cut it by 50% to make it as affordable as possible. And you will see the dollar value and the percentage rate on the screen in front of you. What I will say is that application fees should not be a barrier for applying and getting approval for these products. We will make provisions if you do not have the funds to pay for the application. We can add that to the actual loan repayment so that you can pay that back over whatever the repayment terms are. And we've also now removed the fee for credit check. We do have to run a credit check for each application, but we've decided to also sponsor that so that the overall cost to the business is reduced. And also for guaranteeing the bank loans and overdrafts, we have also reduced the fees that BEDC would normally charge by 50% once again. And so this chart actually shows you, based on the total amount of funds that are being guaranteed by us, what would be the fee, as well as if that loan that you get from the bank or from the credit union would be fully secured, or if there would be some unsecured portions. And so we've really tried to do our best to make all of our funding options as affordable as possible. We're trying to be as flexible as possible in order to help to sustain these businesses, you guys as entrepreneurs, and offer triage while you navigate this post-COVID-19 world. Once again, we've removed the credit check fee for the bank loans and overdrafts. And the guarantee fee to us would be payable upon approval of the application. So we've modified our processes to make sure that we're not receiving this fee up front. We want to wait until we get an approval, and then we'll discuss with you about how to pay for the fee. And then if we are, some of our clients have existing guarantees, and if we have to come in to help to restructure, then we'll add on a nominal 0.25% to the overall total guarantee amount. So some of the things that is helpful for businesses and entrepreneurs to remember when you submit your documents and your fees to us to process is to use the checklist as as a as a way to understand whether or not you've submitted all the information we need to be able to process your application efficiently and effectively to get you the funding that you need as soon as possible. It is there to help you to understand all of the information that we need. Email your completed documents to your assigned BEDC officer. So once you send something maybe to our general info at BEDC email, we'll assign an officer. That officer will then work hand in hand with you. And even though we are working remotely, we are processing applications and providing advice and support as if we were physically within our offices. So there shouldn't be any delay with regard to responses. The clock starts once we receive all the completed documents, and so some may be wondering, well, you know, why this may be taking longer than expected, and it's because we've asked you to provide us with something, and we're waiting for you to get that back to us. And then, of course, paying for that, well, of course, that's as seamless as possible. We have an opportunity for you to transfer that money within our accounts, or you can use debit or credit card. We have that capability. And also, I believe we have some capability throughout our website to take payments. So there are 5 general categories of funding documents that are required and needed in order to, you know, for us to process these applications. As I spoke to, there's a checklist, there's an application form, there is a business profile or business plan. Some businesses may have business plans, and we're just asking them to, you know, provide that to us if they have it. But if they don't have it, then we're asking you to fill out what we call a business profile. That basically is a document that asks in-depth questions about your business that you guys would know because it's your business that you've been running for, you know, X amount of years. If I go back to the application form, it's just important to fill that out in its entirety. There may be some sections that are not applicable to you and your business, but where they are applicable, it's just helpful for you to fill it out fully. It gives us information about who you are as a person and what we need to do in order to process this application. We're going to ask for you to submit something that we call personal financial statements. These documents give us an insight into you, yourself as an individual person, and they serve a purpose that if your business is challenged and not able to remake the payments for the loan, we need to determine whether or not there's some personal income that could actually help with regard to meeting the loan obligations. And then last but not least, we're going to ask for some financial information about your business, which, you know, all of you should have in order for you to make the best decisions about if your business is successful, if it's profitable, where you need to pivot and change. And so we're going to ask for, you know, an income statement, income and expense statement, and a cash flow projection. And Ray later in this presentation is going to go through exactly what they are. In all of this, we don't want to make this overwhelming for you. So we are literally hand-holding you through this process, walking with you through this so that your business can be successful. And in many cases, we are helping clients to compile this information so that they can have some application success. All of this information that I spoke about with regard to the products that we are offering to help businesses through COVID-19 are on our website. And of course, this presentation is also in the section with the handouts. So please feel free to download that so you have this presentation after the webinar. Okay, so to go through the application checklist, this is an example of what that actually looks like. And it is pretty self-explanatory. It explains what we need or what we require in order to process and why we require it. And then we're asking you to either put in the date that you received or sent it to us and completed it, or at least check it. Everything in yellow is done by BEDC internally once we receive the information above. And the last thing I want to say is that the application fee will only be executed once the application is approved. The actual business sustainability and continuity funding application form, we have an example of it. It does consist of a few pages, but it goes through and asks what type of funding you're asking for. Is it the direct lending from BEDC that includes the grant? Is it a bank guarantee for a loan? Is it an overdraft? We're asking you to tell us what band of business that you're falling in. Are you, one of the small under revenue of 100,000, or are you a larger size, medium sized business? Who you are as a person, where the business is located, what your payroll tax and social insurance ID number is. And then we're also asking you to sign an undertaking that you agree to abide by the conditions of the funding. The business profile or business plan, essentially, we need to understand not just who you are, but what your business is, how long it has existed, what industry it's in, where it's located, who comprises of the ownership and management, why do you need the funding, what's the purpose, and have you thought about who your customer is, what the market is for your business, what have you done historically, and what will you do post-COVID-19? Who are your competitors? And last but not least, what the projected revenue and expenses are for your business. We are helping you to have a successful application, but I think we're also helping you to have a plan for the future of your business. And so the data and the information that you compile, yes, it's helpful for us to make a decision on approval, but ultimately it's helpful for you as a business to chart your future and know where you're going to go and understand what the landscape currently exists of and how you can pivot yourself in order to have a more successful business, especially in these unknown times with COVID-19. So just quickly, I'm just going to go through each part of the business profile. I'm not going to go through every point, but we're going to ask you on the history and nature of the business and your background experience. So as I said, what type of business? What type of business structure? Are you a sole proprietor? Are you incorporated? What's your experience in this industry? Who are your clients? And most importantly, how has COVID-19 impacted the operations of your business, and what are your plans during and after the pandemic? And all of this, the business profile is probably about a 6-page document. It asks these questions, and as long as you answer the questions, then it gives us better insight and it helps you to prepare your plan for the future. We also ask you to do a very mini SWOT analysis, right, of your business. So what are the strengths of the business? What are the weaknesses of the business? And what will you do to mitigate those weaknesses? Are there any opportunities with regard to your business or the industry right now? What are they? And then are there any threats? And if there are threats, how will you mitigate those threats? Now, I would say COVID-19 pandemic is a huge threat. So how are you mitigating those threats in the future? How are you pivoting or navigating this business to ensure that you can sustain beyond where you are right now? We're going to ask you for questions on the business location, like, are you in the East End? Are you central? Do you lease? Are you mobile? Are you an e-commerce business? Have you spoken to your landlord right now? If you rent a space, have you spoken for rent forgiveness or deferral? Any agreements, have they been made? And then we're going to ask you for a copy of the lease to understand whether or not you're month to month, whether or not you have a 2-year, 3-year lease, because there's information will help us to determine what's the best funding product for you. We want to know a little bit about who the owners are. Obviously, it's you applying, but the management and staff. Do you have some, innovative, creative staff person that really is intricately tied to your business? This happens a lot in the restaurant industry, where you have a chef that is fairly renowned, and you build your extensive menu around that chef and what they specialize in. And so if that chef was no longer there, would that have an impact on your business being sustainable? You have to think about, because the staffing and the details of the experience and qualification of your staff are intricately linked to the success of your business. So we want to have a little bit of idea about that. Also, what's the ownership structure? Do you have a partner? Is a partner aware of the application? Is this a joint application? We want to have a sense of how many employees you had before COVID-19 and how many you have now, and what your plans for rehiring once this is over. And how will your business continue to operate now, especially since now we're in stage 2? So have you seen any transition now in your business now that we're in stage 2? And what's your plans for the future? And we want to have a sense if you've already taken advantage of government's grants with regard to the unemployment relief for your employees. And if so, are they still taking advantage of that? And if not, then that will determine how much funding we can provide to you, because this COVID-19 is actually a triage relief to help with rent, payroll, overhead expenses, insurance, utilities, things that you need to have now in order to sustain this business for the future. We're going to ask you about what do you need the funds for? I just spoke about that. And then how will it be used? How much do you need? And in some cases, there may be a retail business that had already put in a request for inventory, but then does not have the funds to pay it. So if you're one of those retail businesses, how much inventory? What is your plan for selling it? And then if purchasing goods or services, we need to have background on those quotes to be able to validate the request for funds. We're going to ask you a little bit to talk about who your customer who your customers were before COVID-19, who they are now, and how you will retain them, because the success of your business is going to be intricately related to how you're going to re-engage consumers post COVID-19. And then also, we just want to know about who your competitors are. And do you know who they are? Have they pivoted and shifted during this time? And then what can you do to actually outshine them, outperform them in some way, shape, or form? And then do you see any new opportunities to capture either the existing market share or new market share once the pandemic is over? Of course, we're going to talk, we need some financials, but I'm not going to go into that as much because Ray is going to talk about why we need financials. But you have to, in your application, explain what your projected revenue is for your business and what the gross profit you anticipate. We need to have a sense of what you have planned for your business and why you think that this will still be successful within this new environment. And then we're going to ask for personal financial statements. And as I indicated, these are common documents that are required in any lending accommodations, not just for BEDC, but for any financial institution that you may interact from. And ultimately, it is an indication of your personal income and your personal expenses, as well as your personal assets and liabilities. This graph kind of shows how that lays out. But at the end of the day, since there is a loan portion for this total funding component, even though we've tried to make the offering as positive and beneficial as possible, if you can think about it, if you are one of those businesses that receives $30,000 in funding from BEDC directly from us, half of that, 50%, which will be $15,000, would be a grant, so you don't have to pay that back. But the other $15,000 would have to be repaid back. And so we understand that this is a challenging environment, and so we're going to make those repayment terms as flexible and reasonable as possible, so that you have some breathing space in order to repay. But we also understand that at some point businesses will be challenged, and we want to have a sense if there is enough personal income as well as assets to be able to jump in when needed if the business is challenged until the time when the business can right-size themselves. In some cases, there just isn't, and that's fine too, but we need to have a sense. So not having a strong personal financial statement by no means means that you will not be approved for this funding. We have many clients who do not have the most sterling PFSs, and we have approved them. So we are here to work with you. We want to see your business success, and we're trying to save as many businesses as possible. And what's up top here is basically what the personal financial statement templates look like. It is an Excel spreadsheet. You just type in the numbers and it'll automatically calculate for you. So we do have that available as part of the application process so that you don't have to go out and create it yourself. And so that is my very quick and brief explanation of the overall funding package. I try to do it quickly, but give as much information as possible. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ray to talk about the financial statements. But before we do that, I do have another poll that I'd like the attendees to speak about or answer. And the question is, why are you interested in the COVID-19 funding package? Because I think that that'll be helpful for how we shape the rest of this presentation. So I'm going to open it up now. There are 5 answers that you could possibly answer, and just be curious. Why are you interested in the COVID-19 funding package? So I'm just going to give you about a minute to be able to answer that. And you can answer multiple answers. So the poll is, why are you interested in the COVID-19 funding? So right now, about 25% of you have voted. Just give you a few more minutes. We're at 40% response. Okay, I'm going to close it now. And interestingly enough, 56% of you indicated that you need funds to pivot your business for new revenue streams. So that's interesting. 44% of you guys indicated that you have some revenue stream, but not enough. And so that is important for us to understand, not just with this current package that we provided, this COVID-19 package, but it will be helpful for us to understand what else could we actually create that would be helpful for businesses now and in the future when we get to post-COVID-19. And as we've always said, right now we're in triage mode. We understand that you guys just need to stay afloat. And so this package is really about triage. What can we do to help you right now? But we also understand that we need to create some type of stimulus package to help you to prepare for the future. And so the answers to these questions will be helpful in helping us to develop that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to my esteemed colleague, Ray Jones. Ray, I'm just going to turn on your mic. I think I might have disabled it for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Ray.
You can hear me?
I can.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This section will speak to the financial statement component of the application. Basically, just want to give you an idea of what the statements are if you've probably never seen their statements. If there's any accountants on the line, then you should all be familiar statements that you're seeing. But we're not going to try to make you an accountant today, but these are statements that you should be utilizing on a daily basis. If not, hopefully going forward, you will start to utilize. And as you have to put together the application, it might be intimidating, but some of the advice we have gave clients is maybe you have a family member or a friend, in addition to us, that could assist you in pulling the statements together. So there we go. So the reason why it's important, financial statements basically speak to the performance and value of the company. It's what others use to value your company, and it's a tool you can use when you are no longer directly involved in the day-to-day business. A cash flow statement forecast. This is very important, as this allows you to plan how to use the money, basically how much funds you expect in, and basically how you use them funds on the overheads that you have for running your business. It's even more important, as probably sure most of you that's on this webinar during these times, in a pandemic like COVID-19, because it's real key to you surviving, or whether you'll be closing your doors. So you need to understand how you manage your business from the basis of no income coming in to some income coming in over the next 3, 6, 9 months, and you would need to assess that so you can make some very quick decisions. Other reasons, these are just some general reasons why people would use it, to identify any pitfalls in cash balances, to manage, as I stated earlier, the ins and goings. So can you pay your suppliers? You might have to renegotiate with your suppliers some payment terms, just because your cash coming in has dried up a bit. And then even as far as paying your staff. I mean, if you have a lot of staff and they're key to your business operations, it's very key that you would know whether you could even afford them anymore, or whether you should be taking advantage of the unemployment benefit that government is making offered at the moment. Also, it allows you to do spot checks on your accounts receivable if your clients are still paying on a timely manner. And the final reason, it allows external stakeholders like banks or us to be able to see if you will be able to actually pay back the loan if you are successful. So here's just some components to give you a guide. Basically, you start out with any beginning cash. Some of you might be saying, well, I don't have no cash at the moment. So that part would be zero. The next section is any sales or revenue that you will be generating. Any one-time startup costs or pivot costs should be for this current scenario we're in. Then the next section is our overhead and expenses. Then we have a section for any relief payments. So this would be any bills you might have fell behind on, or any bills you think you wouldn't be able to pay because of your current situation in the COVID-19. Then the next section has to deal with paying back any loans. And then we have a section where we add back any non-cash items, which then should end up with an ending cash balance. So those are the 8 key sections for the cash flow statement forecast. Some things that you would consider as cash would be cash, petty cash, any bank accounts, any checks that you could be holding for clients, and any unutilized portion of an overdraft or line of credit. Revenue and sales basically is the revenue or sales generated from the good or service that you're actually offering. And expenses is basically the items that's used to run your business, i.e. insurance, rent, telephone, electricity. Those are things that go in the expense and overhead. Startup costs or pivot costs, we can say you might need some assistance in making the adjustment in your business, for buying a different line of inventory. As we all know, we're needed these COVID-19 masks and other supplies, and you might see that as a new revenue stream. So you might need some assistance there, and that's what this will represent. And the loan. So the term loan, as it speaks to, basically, if you needed to buy any equipment, or in this case, just assistance in managing your business through the COVID-19, this sets out the interest rate and the term of months or years that the consistent payments will be made. So as highlighted earlier in this presentation, for us, our term is 42 months, 3% for businesses in the EZ, 3.5 for businesses outside. So those would be the terms that you'll be working within for the product that we have for you today. So the next slide here is basically a demonstration of those components. To just give you a sample, this is part of the package, so hopefully you download it. But at the very top, it shows the beginning cash for each month. The next section, it will be your revenue streams. So if you have more than one revenue streams, that's what those rows represent. Then the blue section is a formula, so you don't have to do anything in there. It adds up all the inflows of cash, which starts at the top of the opening cash balance and the revenues that you have received, and potentially the loan or grant that you receive from us. The next section is the startup cost or pivot cost and all your what we call monthly expenses and overheads. In that section, at the bottom of that section, you would see there's a line for the loan payments to take into consideration. And then the blue section again is a formula which adds up all the outflows, which then leads to the bottom line, which is your net cash flow, which actually speaks to what your ending cash position would be at the end of each month. That ending cash position then automatically goes to the top of the next claim as the opening cash position, and then you would continue the process as you put the information in the schedule. So we do receive cash flows, and we will see lines of, I'm going to make $20,000 a month. Basically, at the bottom of this schedule, we would like to see assumptions as to how you are actually going to make that revenue, to make sure that it's reasonable and to make sure that you have taken everything into consideration in relation to COVID-19 or your competitors and whatnot, to make sure that you could be successful. So it's not just putting random numbers in the revenue section, but you actually gave some thought behind how you're actually going to reach those targets. And here's a blank cash flow statement. It's a tool that we have that's part of the package. It's available on our website, but it just speaks to what I just spoke to, which is the opening cash position, the revenue, the overheads, and the ending cash. And on the bottom of it, there is a key as to what information goes into the various sections and how the various rows actually work, and some examples of things that you could include in the various sections. Not every company's cash flow statement will be the same. So some of these items are particularly in the overhead section, you might not have in your business, and that is fine. Or some items in this section potentially could be missing that you have. You can just basically change the category so that it actually is a true reflection of your business. Next. The income statement. The income statement basically is a report that shows the flows of revenues and expenses over a given period of time, typically a month, quarter, or year. In a pandemic like this, most people would assess their income statement and cash flow statement at a minimum on a monthly basis, but sometimes you have to assess it on a weekly basis to be able to make the right decisions. It's a summary of management's performance as reflected in the profitability or lack of it of an organization over a certain period. It itemizes the revenues and expenses of the past that led to the current profit or loss, that indicates what may be done to improve your current results. Three main components, similar to the cash flow, basically the revenue or sales. The second component is the expenses, and the third component is the net income. And in this case, in the slide, I didn't put net income / loss because I want us to all be winners. So we're just trying to highlight positiveness that you all will have net income coming out post-COVID. Similar to the other slide, what revenue is, so we can probably speed through these slides a little quicker because we already covered. We spoke about expenses and overhead, net income. So we can go to the balance sheet. And there's like sample income statement. Just go back to sample income statement, which looks similar to the cash flow statement. But some of you might already have accounting systems that you're already utilizing that can produce this. This is just a sample that we make available to people that maybe don't have their systems. And to be honest, you can just give us the totals, meaning the whole 12 months. You don't necessarily have to provide it month by month. But this is just a guide in case you don't have anything at this point in time as to how you're tracking your profit and loss. The balance sheet basically is a status report that shows information about the company's resources at any one given point in time. A balance sheet is a financial statement that summarizes a company's assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity at a specific point in time. These three balance sheet segments give investors an idea as to what the company earns, as well as the amount invested by the shareholders. Now, it's not just for investors, but also for you as business owners. You should be periodically taking a look at your balance sheet to see exactly what your company's worth. These are the three main components, which is assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity. Basically, the assets are the resources that a business uses to operate its business, such as cash, inventories, land, building, equipment. Basically, assets are any items of value earned or controlled by the business that contributes towards generating your revenue or sales. Assets are categorized in either current or long-term. Current assets is items that are expected to be consumed or converted into cash within the next 12 months. And then long-term assets, this is an example of current assets, which are cash equivalents, marketable securities, accounts receivable, inventory, and prepaid expenses. Long-term assets are any items that be consumed or converted into cash after 12 months. Some ideas of long-term assets are long-term securities that will not be or cannot be liquidated in the next 12 months. Fixed assets such as land, machine, equipment, and then intangible assets. These include non-physical but still valuable assets such as intellectual property and goodwill. For that section, it could be trademarks, patents, etc. that you have that are very key to the success of the business. So that's what the intangible asset section is. Liabilities are the financial obligations or debts of businesses and include claims that creditors have on the business resources, such as accounts payable, bank overdrafts, provision for employees' annual leave, long service leaves, liabilities, loans, etc. Similar to assets, liabilities, there's a current section and a long-term section. Current liabilities are those that are due within 1 year and are listed in order of due date. So current portion of long-term debt, any banking debt is overdraft, interest payable, rents payable, tax, utility bills, wages, any customer deposits, dividends payable. Long-term liabilities are due at any point after 1 year. Some ideas of that is the long-term interest and principal on the loan or bonds, any pension fund liabilities, or any deferred revenue. Shareholders' equity is the residual interest in the assets of a business after liabilities are deducted. It is the net worth of a business and equals the difference between assets and liabilities. Equity represents the amounts belonging to the owner once all financial obligations have been met. So, basically, this is the ownership's value to the business. Sections, areas inside this section is the common shares, which highlights the ownership, any contributed surplus, cash or assets contributed by the business owners, retained earnings, which is the profits earned from the prior years, and then the net income is the income earned in the current year. So just some equations. As the title states, the balance sheet, it should balance. So basically, assets equal liabilities plus shareholders' equity. Assets minus liabilities equals shareholders' equity. Assets minus shareholders' equity equals liabilities. No matter how you work it, the balance sheet should balance. And here's a sample. And just like the other statements, you don't have to have every one of these sections. But as you can see, we have a current assets, which reflects the items we spoke about, cash, any accounts receivable, and any inventory. Then we go into the next section that's a reflection of the building and land that this company happens to own. And the next section is the liabilities. Similar, the accounts payable, which is all the bills that's due in the next 12 months. And then we have a long-term liabilities, which would be, in this case, this company has a mortgage. That's where that will go. And then we have the equity section below, which speaks to retained earnings, share capital, and net income. Basically, you might not have all of these sections, but this is just an example to give you some guide as you try to put together a balance sheet for your company if you don't already have an accounting system that's assisting you with that. So that was a snapshot. As I profess, was not trying to make you an accountant. There's no way we were going to do that in 20 minutes, but really just give you some guide as to what the statements are, what we expect to see in the statements. And once again, we are available to assist because we know this part tends to be a bit tricky for clients that haven't been keeping financial data in the past. So now I believe we're going to open it up to any questions.
Thank you for that, Ray. So yes, this is now the time for you guys to ask questions. You do have the ability to turn on the mic, so I will make sure that everybody can have control of your mics. We have about 10 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes or so. We will have the ability to answer written questions if you just type in those written questions if you don't want to ask. And I see already a handout, so I will go to Anna S. Do you have a question? Hello?
My mother and his they're always here.
All right, Anna, can you ask your question? Anna? Okay. Does anyone else, sorry, there's a bit of feedback and I couldn't hear your question clearly. So are there any other questions that someone may want to ask? There was a written question that came in with regard to how long the COVID-19 funding will be available for, and when will staff be available for physical meetings to discuss. And so we have made the funding available for as long as it hasn't been dispensed. Right now, it will be until the end of the year, so up until December 31st. I suspect that we will go longer than that. It's just depending on how many funding applications got approved and how the funds have been dispensed. We are currently not physically working within our office. We're still observing physical distancing, but we are available for any questions and meetings with clients, either phone conference meetings or web conference meetings. And we've been doing that for the last 8 weeks now. I cannot tell you when we will go back into the office. We are being guided by what government says with regard to remote working. Are there any other questions that persons may want to ask? Please raise your hand and I'll unmute your mic. Melissa Leach, I see your mic unmute. Do you have a question?
Hi, I was wondering, I saw that it says that the grants would be 50% for the BEDC loans. Is that 50% or up to 50% decided by the BEDC?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it is actually 50%. So it isn't a sliding scale up to 50%. It's a blanket 50%. So if you receive 10,000 in total funding from us, it will be 5,000 as a grant, and 5,000 that you will have to repay back. Likewise, if you receive 30,000 from us, then 50% of that will be a grant. So 15,000 would be just pay it back to us through the loan portion.
Okay. Could I ask one more question?
Sure.
Thank you. Are we permitted to make principal payments without penalty?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, that's actually a great question. I mean, right now, most of our clients have asked for after the deferred payment for 3 months after approval. Most clients have asked for interest only, so we've done that 3 months after. So between 3 and 6 months. But if you want to do principal payments, yes, we can go. You can arrange whatever you want that makes it flexible and achievable for your business.
Okay, great. Because I mean, my reason for asking that is because once I get my invoices in, I like to just pay off my debts as quickly as I can. So I just wanted to see if we are able to do that or if we are penalized. Because I know sometimes when you have a loan, you're penalized when you want to make a capital, payment on the capital or the principal.
So let me just preface that, or maybe I was just going to say if it's the direct funding from BEDC, there is no penalty. But if it's funding that we are approving a guarantee from bank financing, there may be some penalty. But what we will do is negotiate with the client for the best structure for that loan to make sure that it meets whatever you want to achieve. And we're negotiating hard to remove kind of barriers and penalties.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Does anyone else have a question? You can raise your hand, your virtual hand, or you can unmute your mic. Okay, so there was a question that someone typed in asking about, besides QuickBooks, are there other software accounting programs you recommend? Will this seminar be available for future review via web link? So Ray, you might want to answer the question about software accounting packages.
Yes, there are other. We are currently transitioning from QuickBooks to Business Central, and that software is offered by the Mergers Group here locally. But I can't call off the others at the top of my head, but there are others for small businesses that other businesses use. And but I think if you just do a basic Google, you will probably see what's available. The main thing is making sure it produces the financial statements at the end of the day. I know some of the NCR products now that's out there has a back office component where it can produce the financials in the back office. I know there's a few local retailers for that as well. So depending on your business, if you need a point of sales business, and I would reach out to those people because it would do everything for you. It would be the POS system as well as produce financials for you in the background.
I also know that FreshBooks, some small businesses use FreshBooks. I think I would agree with Ray. I think at the end of the day, is if you can to have an accounting system that you feel comfortable enough to use. I know a lot of businesses do get QuickBooks or some accounting software, but they don't use it. So you have to make sure that you get something that you're comfortable with and familiar with, so that you use it. But if you don't have it, my advice has been, at the end of the day, just go back to basics, right? Just capture on a daily basis in Excel spreadsheet what was your revenue for that day and what was your expenses for that day. So at the end of the week, you can add that all up. And even if you don't have Excel, you can do that manually by hand. You can just have a journal that you write down literally what did you do at the end of the day and what did you spend at the end of the day. Keep it as basic as that. We will also, this program is being recorded, this webinar. We will provide that to all attendees through a link that you can review again. I want to encourage you, once again, there are 5 handouts. One is this presentation. One is the actual funding package in its entirety, so you can see that. And then we've included 3 others. One is the application form for the funding. One is the business profile that goes with the application, and then the other is the cash flow projection. So you can actually download them right now before we end this webinar to have it for your use. So we're almost at the end. Are there any final questions? Please raise your hand, or if you wish, you can type it. Okay. Well, I think I don't see any questions. I'm going to put this last slide up for everyone. This is our contact information. If you go to our website at bedc.bm, you will see a wealth of information, including this funding package, as well as all of the other support packages that we have for businesses. You'll see that we have other products. So you may not actually fit within the COVID-19, but you may be able to get benefit from our general microloan, or from our debt consolidation microloan, or for our line of credit for businesses, of retail businesses, if you want to establish a credit line at customs. So look around, ask us questions. Our email address is info@bedc.bm. and our phone number is 292-5570. So we are answering the phone, and we're just trying to make this process as easy and navigable as possible for every business. And we've also ramped up with regard to our human resources to be able to assist you. So if that is it, I want to thank you for attending this Lunch and Learn, and I want to wish you all the success with your business. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you.